In this video, we will have a quick look at functions in Python. One benefit of using functions is that they make our code more readable. Much like when we use paragraphs to make our text documents more readable, functions makes our code more organized and easier to understand. Another benefit of using functions is that we avoid having the same code duplicated in several places. This makes it a lot simpler to make changes to the code and know that those changes are used throughout the application. Let's have a look at a few examples of how functions might look in the code. So let's start with the main function. This is a function that don't take any parameters and it doesn't return anything. We use the main function as the mainline logic or the starting point of our scripts. We call main this way to make sure that we only run main if we run this script directly. And in this example here, we have another function called print order that takes a few parameters. This means that when we want to use this function, we have to supply a few arguments. And in this case, they are item, quantity, and price. And we see, right, we can send along, for example, t-shirt 3 and 19.99. Then inside the function, we have some statements. For example, in this case, we calculate the total and then we print our order. In a few cases, it might be confusing what the 2 and 15 mean, for example. Is this the price or quantity? Then we can use keyword arguments. So hopefully this makes it a little bit simpler to understand that 2 is the quantity and 15 is the price. And the functions are not used or called automatically. We have to do that manually in our code. So we see in this case here, we call it twice, supplying different arguments. And when we call it, we will jump up and execute those instructions. Then we will continue with whatever comes after the call to the function. Now let us have a look at a second example. And in this case, we have a function calculate factorial that will calculate the factorial of n numbers. So this function takes a parameter. We must supply an argument when we are calling it. And it also returns a result to us. When we are calling this function, as we said, we have to supply an argument. Then will be assigned to the parameter n, and then when n is used in the function, it has the value 10. But when we call it, we said that we also return something. We return the result of executing this function. If we don't assign it or use it directly, it will be lost. So we must assign it to a variable. In this case, I assign it to a variable total that is then used. Or we can use it directly. So in this case here, we call the function calculate factorial, supply the argument 5, and whatever the result returned is, will be printed directly. So it's not stored in a variable like we did up here. We are using it directly. So we can have functions that takes parameters, and we can have functions that don't take parameters. We can also have functions that return something, and we can have functions that don't return anything.